Good morning, y'all. It is August 5th, and I want to spend this morning talking to you about a word that meteorologists and tropical scientists use at a very specific moment every single hurricane season, a moment that the calendar has now delivered. That word is change, because what the Local 10 hurricane team confirmed just yesterday in one of the most concise and accurate assessments of where this season stands is this: things change by August. That is not my analysis. That is the documented, climatologically grounded, historically confirmed reality of how Atlantic hurricane seasons work. The first 2 months of hurricane season, June and July, are statistically the quietest months of the year. They are dominated by Saharan dust, by El Niño wind shear, by sea surface temperatures that have not yet reached their annual maximum. And the 2026 season has lived up to that statistical character completely. 2 named storms, one of the slowest starts this century, behind only 2009 and 2007 in terms of how little activity the first 2 months produced. The El Niño shear has been relentless. The dust has been frequent. The basin has been quiet in a way that has given every Gulf Coast and East Coast community an extended window of preparation time that they absolutely should be using right now. But August is here, and August is when everything changes. Let me tell you exactly what that means, what the data shows about what August brings to the Atlantic Basin, and why the big change that is coming deserves the full, honest, science-grounded attention of every community on the Gulf and East Coast of the United States. Why August is different. The climatological reality. Let me start with the science of why August represents a fundamentally different tropical weather environment from June and July, because understanding the mechanism is the key to understanding why the word change is the right word for this moment. The Atlantic hurricane season's statistical peak, the single day that represents the climatological maximum of tropical activity, is September 10th. That date is not arbitrary. It reflects the culmination of a set of atmospheric and oceanic processes that build throughout the summer and reach their maximum in early to mid-September. But the transition toward that peak does not happen overnight. It happens gradually, starting in August, as the conditions that have been suppressing the basin begin to ease and the conditions that support development begin to strengthen. Here is specifically what changes in August. The main development region, that broad swath of tropical Atlantic from the African coast westward toward the Caribbean, reaches its warmest sea surface temperatures of the year. The fuel supply for tropical cyclone development peaks. The African easterly wave activity, which produces the tropical waves that roll off the continent and begin their westward journey toward the Caribbean and the Gulf, reaches its own seasonal maximum. More waves, more organized waves, more systems entering the pipeline at more frequent intervals than anything June or July produced. At the same time, the Saharan dust loading that has been one of the 2 primary suppressors of this season's tropical activity tends to decrease in August. The seasonal shift in the African monsoon pattern reduces the lofting of dust off the continent and into the tropical Atlantic, gradually clearing the basin of the dry, dusty air that has been suffocating the convection around every wave that has tried to organize this summer. And the atmospheric moisture in the tropical Atlantic, the mid-level relative humidity that is so critical to whether a developing system can sustain its convective towers without them being eroded by dry air entrainment, increases through August as the background moisture field of the deep tropics recovers from the dust suppression of the early season. None of those changes override El Niño. The El Niño wind shear that Colorado State University identified as the dominant suppressor for this season, the factor that drove them to reduce their forecast to 40 to 45% of the long-term average in their July update, does not suddenly go away in August. But it does not suppress the basin uniformly or continuously. It pulses. It has windows of relaxation. And in August, when the fuel supply is at its maximum, when the wave activity is at its maximum, when the dust is decreasing and the moisture is increasing, a window of El Niño shear relaxation over the right part of the basin at the right moment has the potential to allow development that the June and July environment would have suppressed entirely. That is the big change. Not a guarantee, not a certainty, but a fundamentally different probability environment than anything the first 2 months of this season produced. Where the season stands right now, the full picture. Let me give you the honest, complete picture of where the 2026 Atlantic hurricane season stands as of this morning, August 5th, because I think having the full context is essential to understanding why what happens in August matters so much. The season has produced 2 named storms. Tropical Storm Arthur, which formed in mid-June and made a brief landfall near Galveston, Texas, as a minimal tropical storm before quickly weakening. Tropical Storm Bertha, which formed south of the Florida Panhandle in late July, made landfall along the northern Gulf Coast and produced significant flooding across portions of Louisiana and southeast Texas before its remnants tracked inland and dissipated. 2 storms. That is it. And as the Local 10 hurricane analysis confirmed yesterday, The 2026 Atlantic hurricane season is off to one of its slowest starts this century, behind only 2009 and 2007 in terms of total early season activity. That slowness has been a direct product of the El Niño suppression I have been covering on this channel throughout the summer. Caribbean wind shear running at the second highest level on record for early July. Frequent Saharan dust surges, including one surge in mid-July that Local 10's Michael Lowry confirmed, was expected to top the strongest dust event of the entire year. Every tropical wave that has crossed the Atlantic this summer, and there have been multiple, including the system currently in the Caribbean as Invest 98L, has encountered a basin environment that has been actively hostile to development rather than merely indifferent to it. But here's the context that the Local 10 analysis provided this morning, and that I think is the most important framing for the next several months. The amount of tropical activity observed so far this season is not a meaningful predictor of what the season will produce going forward, at least through the early months. It is only by the end of meteorological summer, by the end of August, that early season activity becomes a meaningful predictor for what September and October will produce. The season that was quiet in June and July can still produce a busy September and October. The season that was busy in June and July can sometimes go quiet in September and October. The early season activity number is not destiny. Today is also the day that Colorado State University was scheduled to release their August 5th seasonal forecast update, the most current professional assessment of what the remainder of the 2026 Atlantic hurricane season is expected to produce. That update incorporates all of the El Niño data, all of the sea surface temperature analysis, all of the model guidance that has been accumulated through the first half of the season. When that update is released today, I am going to be going through it carefully, and I will have a full breakdown for you as soon as it is published. What I can tell you right now, based on the direction the CSU team has been tracking this season, their July reduction to 40 to 45% of normal, their increased confidence in a strong or very strong El Niño, is that the August update is unlikely to dramatically reverse that below normal forecast. But the August update will also incorporate something the July update could not, the actual observed state of the basin at the start of the peak season window. And that observed state includes Invest 98L, includes the wave pipeline that is now loaded with August's maximum energy waves, and includes whatever the models are showing about shear relaxation windows over the coming 2 to 3 weeks. Invest 98L, the system that opens, the August story. Y'all, the timing of what is happening with Invest 98L, the tropical disturbance that entered the Caribbean with a 40% development probability last week, and that is now moving through the Central Caribbean, is itself a story about what August means for this basin. Because this system is arriving in the Caribbean at the exact moment when the August transition is beginning. The wave that enters the Caribbean at the peak of the fuel supply season, in the week when the African easterly wave activity is at its most prolific. During a window when the medium range models have been showing the possibility of shear relaxation over the Central Caribbean by mid-next week, that wave does not face the same hostile environment that the waves of June and July faced. The NHC confirmed a 40% development probability for the system over 7 days, with explicit language in their tropical weather outlook, saying a tropical depression could form while the system slows down over the Central Caribbean by the middle to latter part of next week. The Central Caribbean is carrying sea surface temperatures of 29 to 30 degrees Celsius. The upper ocean heat content is above average, and if the shear relaxation window that the models have been hinting at opens as advertised, if the El Niño westerlies relax over the Central Caribbean by Wednesday or Thursday of next week, the system would be sitting in a nearly ideal development environment. Warm water below, adequate moisture above, reduced shear, a pre-existing circulation to organize around. The 40% probability number is honest. It means 60% of the time the environment does not cooperate and the system fails to develop. But 40% is the highest development probability the NHC has assigned to any Atlantic disturbance all season. And it is arriving at the moment when August is beginning to change the basin. The rapid intensification threat, August's deadliest feature. Y'all, let me spend dedicated time on what I believe is the most important and most underappreciated feature of the August hurricane season for Gulf Coast and East Coast communities, because it is the variable that can take a below normal season and produce a catastrophic landfall event with almost no warning: rapid intensification. Climate Central's most recent hurricane season resource documentation confirmed a finding that deserves to be stated clearly and directly. From 1980 to 2025, 190 Atlantic tropical cyclones underwent rapid intensification, defined as an increase in maximum sustained winds of at least 35 miles per hour in 24 hours. Of those 190 events, nearly one quarter underwent extreme rapid intensification, gaining more than 58 miles per hour in sustained winds in a single 24-hour period. 25% of all rapid intensification events in the historical record were extreme, and research suggests that warmer oceans, which the Gulf of America is carrying right now, with above-average sea surface temperatures and above-average upper ocean heat content, are contributing to an increased fraction of tropical cyclones that strengthen quickly. What that means for Gulf Coast communities right now is this: a system that enters the Gulf of Mexico with even modest tropical storm organization, 40 to 50 mile per hour winds, can be a major hurricane within 36 to 48 hours in the current Gulf environment. The distance from the Yucatan Channel to the Texas coast is approximately 600 miles. At a typical forward speed of 10 to 15 miles per hour, that transit takes 40 to 60 hours. A storm that enters the Yucatan Channel as a tropical storm and undergoes rapid intensification in the Gulf can make landfall as a Category 3 or 4 before the communities in its path have completed even their most basic evacuation decisions. That is not a hypothetical. That is the documented pattern of Gulf of Mexico rapid intensification events in the historical record. This is why I have been saying throughout this season that the preparedness work needs to happen now, in August, before any storm is named, before any cone appears on an NHC graphic. Not because a specific storm is bearing down on a specific coast, but because the Gulf's fuel supply and the rapid intensification history of the basin mean that the window between no storm on the map and major hurricane at your doorstep can be measured in days rather than weeks during August and September. What NOAA is bringing, new this season, tools that matter. Let me mention something that has not gotten much coverage, but that I think matters for how this community thinks about hurricane season going forward. NOAA confirmed in their preseason announcement that for the first time in 2026, data from small uncrewed aircraft systems, drones, will be integrated into NOAA's hurricane analysis and forecast system, AIOFs. Scientists at NOAA's Atlantic Oceanographic and Meteorological Laboratory determined that incorporating drone data into the forecast model can improve hurricane intensity, forecast accuracy by 10%. 10% improvement in intensity forecast accuracy, specifically, is a significant advance because intensity forecasting has historically lagged behind track forecasting in its accuracy. And intensity is the variable that determines storm surge, wind damage, and the overall impact picture for landfalling storms. NOAA also introduced a new urban rain rate dashboard this season, a real-time tool showing the probability of extreme rainfall up to a week in advance for more than 60 U.S. cities. And the NHC updated their forecast cone graphic this season to also depict inland tropical storm and hurricane watches and warnings in effect, a change that better communicates the inland flooding and wind hazard that extends well beyond the cone's geographic center. These are not headline-grabbing announcements. They are the steady, incremental improvements to the forecasting and communication infrastructure that save lives over time. And they are available to every person watching this video right now through the NHC's updated website at Hurricanes. Gov, what you need to do. Right now, the August action list. Y'all, let me close with a direct, honest, actionable guidance that the arrival of August demands from every community on the Gulf and East Coast. Know your hurricane evacuation zone today, not when a storm is named. Today. Go to your county emergency management website right now and find out which zone you're in. Know what that zone designation means for your household's evacuation decision. Zone A means you are in the highest surge risk area and may need to leave first in any significant storm. Build or restock your supply kit this week. Water, 1 gallon per person per day for a minimum of 72 hours. Food, medications, documents in a waterproof bag, phone charger and backup battery, first aid kit, a battery-powered weather radio. These items need to be assembled now when store shelves are full and there is no storm on the map, not in the 48-hour window before a potential landfall when every store in the affected area is already cleared out. Set up y'all call before you go to sleep tonight. Because the change that August brings to this basin is not just about named storms that develop slowly and give communities days to prepare. It is also about the outer rain bands of rapidly developing systems that arrive overnight, producing embedded tornadoes with no warning. A direct phone call to your number when a tornado warning covers your exact address, cutting through Do Not Disturb, ringing until you answer, getting you up and moving to shelter, is $14.95 for a full year. And tune back in here every morning. Because starting today, August 5th, I'm going to be covering every tropical development, every meaningful model shift, every NHC advisory update with the same science-first, community-focused, honest coverage that this channel has delivered all season. The CSU August forecast update drops today. The NOAA August update drops this month. Invest 98L is in the Caribbean. And August has arrived. Y'all, a big change is coming in August. Not as a prediction of disaster. as a statement of climatological fact, backed by decades of observational data and confirmed this morning by Local 10's hurricane analysis team. The 2026 Atlantic hurricane season is off to one of its slowest starts this century. El Niño has been suppressing the basin all summer, 2 named storms in 2 months. And August is the month when the fuel supply peaks, the wave activity peaks, the dust decreases, and the windows of shear relaxation become more frequent and more consequential. The change is real. The timing is now. The preparation needs to happen today. Subscribe and ring that notification bell. Share this video with your family on the Gulf Coast and the East Coast. Set up y'all call. Know your zone, have your kit. And I will be right here every single morning through the peak of this season, giving you the honest, complete, science-grounded picture of what the Atlantic is doing and what it means for the communities that matter most. I love y'all. Stay safe out there.